Abhishek Jain, and I'm pleased to invite you all to the fifth episode of the LLM series by Planty. Towards the end of this session, we will also be having a Q&A session for which I would request you all to put your questions in the live chat box. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Param Bhalerao, a graduate of the 2018 batch of GNLU, who then went on to pursue his LLM in International Dispute Settlement, also known as the MIDS, from the Geneva Centre for International Dispute Settlement in 2020. He has previously worked at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas in the field of international arbitration and is currently a trainee in international arbitration at Queen Emmanuel. In this session, Param will be speaking in detail on the application process to the MIDS as well as the opportunities available during and after a MIDS from the Geneva Centre for International Dispute Settlement. I would now like to hand it over to Param to begin the session.
Hi, thank you for the very kind introduction, Abhishek. I would not say you're fortunate to have my time because my time is not that important. But I think I just wanted to have the opportunity to share about what I have learned in the process of applying to the MIDS, what it is about, who should go for it, when one should go for it, stuff like that, which I thought I had formed an opinion on, which may or may not be the same for everyone, but it's just my perspective. So the MIDS is, as you said, the LLM in International Dispute Settlement. So it's basically like a joint program by the University of Geneva and the Graduate Institute in Geneva. So the Graduate Institute is both of these institutions are amazing for their faculty in international law. So basically we have something that comes together and, you get the best of international law faculty, international arbitration faculty. Of course, you can go on the website and check who the faculty is and stuff like that. I don't have to elaborate on that, and I don't have to elaborate about what the program is. I can tell you in person, like my perspective of the program has been that it is an intense curriculum about dispute settlement procedures. And so if we take a step back, so this program is very popular among, or at least a bit popular among people who want to pursue international arbitration in India. But once you get here, you realize it's not just international arbitration. The program is called International Dispute Settlement. So there's a lot more to learn about, especially about the ICJ, public international law. There's you also have these optional courses where you can learn the substantive aspects of public international law and comparative contract law, trade law. So it's basically like a one-stop shop for your LLM in international law, but with a focus on international dispute settlement. With respect to the application process, I would say that it's fairly straightforward. You don't have to pay any fees, which is a good thing because I keep hearing about, it's expensive to apply to law schools, which is like a very prohibitive thing, especially for many of us students who don't necessarily come from privileged backgrounds. And so the one good thing about this is that you can just apply as many times as you want. Of course, you apply once each year, you don't make multiple applications in the same year. As a part of your application, well, you'll see what are the requirements online, but I've got this question often is whether you need to submit, your written sample. And I would say that is, of course, always helpful. I don't know what exactly they look into when they are considering a candidate. And honestly, I don't know what worked for me. But I would say my general sense is they look for someone who can demonstrate an interest in international dispute procedures, either through arbitration or, the public international law aspect. And I think they also try to focus on, having the candidates who have a good chance of, pursuing a career further in life in this field. So they are a bit more keen on candidates who are kind of focused on what they want to do next, and they are sure that they want to pursue international disputes. Now, whether or not they do that later in the future is not relevant, but yeah, I think that's what they look at. Yeah, with respect to this part, do you have any questions on that till where I've come now, or if there's something I should be adding?
Just one question that I do have
Yeah.
is with respect to a CV. So, do you think that there is any kind of requirement that you have some kind of experience with respect to dispute settlement, like any kind of internship experience or publications? Is that a necessary prerequisite?
So I would say yes and no, and I understand that can be a bit confusing. So yes, it's necessary to have professional experience, and if your professional experience is shorter, and this is also from what I've seen so far, it may not necessarily be the case. But if your professional experience is shorter, I think it helps if that experience is in dispute settlement. But I have also seen people come here from other backgrounds, such as corporate law, and they are also students at the MIDS. They have also done the LLM. So I would not say that it's a hard and fast rule, but those people that I have seen have a lot more experience under their belt. So I'm not sure what the school considers, but I suppose your best bet would be to have dispute settlement experience, since that's the LLM you're going into, and you would have to try and justify somehow as to why you are applying to a dispute settlement LLM when you don't have any dispute settlement experience. I think although the people I'm mentioning, they did have some demonstrable interest in the international dispute sector, I think, through their publications. So publications do count, they do matter, but that doesn't mean that you won't do well enough without a publication. Like, yeah, you can still get in, but then you should have good experience on the side. I mean, I guess it's like a give and take. You just balance it out somehow. Yeah, and like when you're mentioning a publication, yeah, do put in a good publication, something that would make sense to them. Yeah, that's that. Anything more I should add?
I do have one more question. This is actually with
Yeah.
respect to the personal statement. So, the personal statement, if I'm not wrong, actually requires you to show or demonstrate some kind of interest in the field of dispute settlement. So, do you think that, let's say, ADRs or negotiation or client counseling competitions do help in this aspect?
Um, well, I they should definitely help for sure, I would say. Um, I recall we had like this entire session on mediation. We had this mediation workshop over here, which spanned for 2 days. A very, very interesting experience. So I would say all these things do count. Again, like I don't know what the exact formula is, but I suppose any way you can demonstrate your experience in dispute settlement would be helpful. Now, when it comes to mediation and negotiation, of course, you are working on settling the dispute, aren't you? So yeah, I would say that counts as well. But I don't know if just competitions would be enough or not. Again, that also depends on the kind of applicants they get every year. Maybe you do make the cut because you have that edge. Maybe you don't, but you know, you can have that interest demonstrated in several ways. It's either through publications or your moods or your professional experience or just some work you've done for some person somewhere. Yeah.
Yep, I think that answers my question. No further questions for the application stage.
Okay, perfect. So we've done the application stage. Should we be talking about why one should apply, I suppose, or who should apply? Yeah. Okay. So for the why, I would say, well, keep in mind that this is an LLM, which is not like an Oxford or Harvard LLM. So if your intention is to return and practice in courts in India, this may not help because I mean, I know people who have gone back and practiced in courts in India and they're doing very well. It's not related to that, but from what I see, like these or what I hear about, clients look for these people with marquee LLMs like Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard. So this is not that. You are doing this LLM or you're applying for this LLM because you want to further your interest in international dispute settlement, either in the career side or the academia side. Either one works. So that should be very clear in your mind. If you have any confusion in your mind, I would suggest you take another year to be clearer for yourself about what is it you really want. If you feel like for example, just recently I was speaking to someone who did not have experience in arbitration, but uh, they wanted to apply for the LLM because arbitration seems like an interesting subject in general. Yeah, that's fair, but at the same time, like you don't want to, do an entire LLM and then later on realize that okay, subject can be objectively interesting, but you don't necessarily like the practice of it. That is, if you want to enter the professional side of it. So, yeah, you should keep all these things in mind when deciding to take up this program. So, I would say the people who should apply for this LLM are the ones who either through academia or as lawyers want to pursue a full-time career in international disputes or international law. Um, Now, that's about why one should apply, and I already said that it's like an intensive experience. Um, Professors are amazing. I asked you to look them up anyway on the website, but yeah, I would say that it's literally the people who are at the top of their game. You get to see their names in arbitral awards, which are off discussed or like their headlines on I Reporter or GAR. So it's those people. So and to have their undivided attention for so many hours, it's just amazing. Just to be able to speak to them, ask them questions. And I think what makes this even better is the class, your peers that you have. They all come from various backgrounds, common law, civil law countries, various nationalities, languages. So everyone brings their own perspective into this. So you get to learn a lot from your peers as well. Yeah, and who should we already dealt with who should apply? No, we did not deal with who should apply. No, we did deal with who should apply. But yeah, I would say that when you apply for this, do keep in mind the financial aspect of it. I would, and unfortunately, the system as it exists, an LLM is, or at least abroad, is a very expensive endeavor. I was fortunate to have some financial assistance from some lawyers. Everyone is not privileged to, even take a loan. Like I did have to take a loan as well, but I was not even eligible to take a loan beyond a certain amount. So it really like came together in a very I wouldn't say haphazard manner, but it was like a happy accident the way I could manage to finance this. But finances are very important. If you look at the fees, I think you should just double that and count that as your living expenses approximately, and you should keep that figure in mind. So I would say like 50,000 francs for a year, maybe. And whether it is worth to do this LLM by taking an entire loan, the LLM is brilliant, but if you have to take a loan and you're not taking a loan for saving taxes, but you're taking a loan out of necessity, then I would say you should just maybe save some more money or just wait it out for a scholarship. Scholarships are available, but they are very few. And well, they're difficult to come by. So if you do get the scholarship, that's amazing. Of course, then you have no hesitation. You can just come and study here. But if you don't get a scholarship, I would say think twice. You do have to financially plan ahead. So you can probably have a plan in place, that, you're planning to come back and work, start working with a firm, and you can estimate how much you're going to earn and all. I mean, it's just maths you can put together and see that whether you can take a loan and afford it down the line, or you could, if you do get an internship somewhere, you should maybe calculate how much you could save from that internship and how much you can pay off. But in either scenario, trust me, it does not make sense to take a loan for the entire amount if you are taking a loan out of necessity and not out of tax reasons or whatever. I mean, those who are being able to do it as it is, of course, there's no scope of discussion over there. Yeah, and Geneva is a fairly expensive city. Not just the accommodation, but also food and everything. So, yeah, do keep that in mind. And this is not to say that you don't deserve to do the LLM or something. No, I think you may just deserve it even more. But unfortunately, that is the reality of the world. Maybe there are various scholarships that you can apply to. Of course, in addition to the scholarships offered by the program, I am not too conversant with them, but there's the Tata Scholarship, KC Mahindra, and a few others. I'm sure a quick Google search can tell you a lot more about them. Yeah, that's about it. So tell me, Abhishek, what else can we talk about in this aspect to cover up for what I have surely have missed?
Yep. So I think you've definitely told us a lot about the whole application process, about who should apply and what are the different considerations that we should have when we are actually applying for this. But one of the questions that I really do want to ask you about this particular LLM is, what are some of the unique career prospects that it actually opens up after you complete it that you may not actually be able to avail of, let's say, simply out of a 5-year or a 3-year LLB degree?
Sure. Now, with respect to unique career prospects, as a general rule, I would say that there are none. As an exception, though, you will have the opportunity to undertake internships at law firms where you will be able to practice international arbitration. And international arbitration, the practice thus far has been largely Eurocentric and then American-centric. Of course, it's expanding now, and we have very good arbitration firms in India and Japan, Korea. But yes, and as an exception, you may have the opportunity to undertake these internships. The reason I say as an exception is not because you have to be extra talented or something. It's just pure luck. I mean, of course, you have to put in the hard work. There's no doubt about that. You have to make your applications and you have to prepare well for your interview. But sometimes it just works out. Sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I think this brings us to internships. What to expect post the LLM? Yeah, opportunities for Indians in particular, there are few in Europe, mainly because of the language barrier and also because of the legal qualification barrier. Though there are firms such as Laliv, Levi Kaufman Kohler, they do take an intern every year from the MIDS program. So you will have an opportunity to intern there if you do make the cut, which, and again, the cut is based on, well, XYZ criteria, which are not just necessarily marks. It's just, it somehow works out. I do not have the exact formula. Again, it didn't work out for me, by the way, at those internships. Uh, it's necessary to apply to as many places as you can um, for internships. But again, the truth is that there are just a handful of firms who might just take you as an intern. Of course, if you are multilingual, you are, fluent in French like a native, or if you're fluent in Spanish like a native, you can read legal Spanish, you can write legal Spanish and French. That's a different story altogether. But I'm speaking to the layman who may not speak this. And when I say fluent, I mean like absolutely fluent. I don't mean like those who are on their B2 or C1, because that's apparently not enough to do, or may not be enough to do legal work. Although I think you can help with translations and stuff, but I mean, you're not here for translation, you're here for uh, doing arbitration work. So once you have an internship, you should try to make the most of it. You should not expect anything out of it. I mean, it's not something that can convert into a job, as again, as a rule. As an exception, it may. For some people, it has. But for you only see about the people for whom it has worked out. You don't see the people who have not been able to make it work out. And that's not a comment on either of on the people who have made it and or the people who have not made it. It's simply again right place, right time. There's a suddenly a new case that comes up which requires someone like you, and your internship is almost over, and you've done excellent work, so you might just be hired. Now the main barrier that we face here is the visas. Now, in order to justify a visa for employment in in this part of the world, it's not just necessary to show that you are capable, but also the firm cannot find someone equal to hire, and that's why they're hiring you. Now, that is very hard to demonstrate when your best assets are the Indian law degree and the English language. Both of these are very good assets, but you know that also makes you not very unique, because there are many others who speak English. There are many people with common law degrees. There are people with civil law degrees who can also do international arbitration work. So the competition is immense, the supply is immense, the demand is not that big. So with respect to recruitment, I would say don't expect anything from the program in terms of getting hired somewhere. Like, you may just get hired. It's not to say that you won't get hired. In fact, you very well may, and you will probably get your career set in international arbitration. But in terms of just planning it out, I would say it's probably a bad idea to have this expectation and do this LLM for this very reason. I would also add that you should not discount the side of academia that does exist, and there's some excellent opportunities to do PhDs after this LLM. In fact, the Graduate Institute offers. Oh, I'm pointing back because it's literally at my back, but they offer some excellent PhD opportunities in international law. In fact, they offer a very good LLM program. It's the Master in International Law, which is a 2-year law program, which sorts of kind of cuts 1 year out of your PhD studies. But then at the end of the day, you are doing an additional year. But it seamlessly transitions. So if you are interested in academia, you should also look into the programs offered by the Graduate Institute. But yeah, with respect to counsel, and I should talk about this as well. So in the international dispute settlement field, as most of you may know or may have read about, you either work as a counsel or a tribunal secretary, at least at the beginning, or if you're like super lucky and maybe you work as an arbitrator, but let's be real, that's not likely at the very beginning of your career. If you're like an experienced person, you don't need to listen to me about this LLM. So there are firms which do counsel work, there are firms which do tribunal secretary work. You should figure out what career path you want. So tribunal secretaries are essentially those who help the arbitral tribunal with the award, with the proceedings. They do research, they assist with the drafting, but they are not writing the award, just listening to the arbitrator's instructions. So Levy Kaufman Kohler is a firm where you have Gabriel Kaufman Kohler and Laura Levy. So when you go there, you would ordinarily work as a tribunal secretary or be a part of that team. So on the other hand, if you go to a firm such as, say, I mentioned Laliv, both of these are places I've not worked at. But ordinarily, you would be doing counsel work. And when I say counsel work, I do not mean like, the high court counsel work where you are going and arguing, but basically solicitor work where you are, putting all the documents together, drafting the pleadings, reviewing documents, making a case theory, preparing witness statements, stuff like that. So basically advocacy, written advocacy. So that is the aspect you shall see at a firm that is counsel work. There are firms which do a mixture of the two as well. Though I think you should keep in mind that once you pick a path, of course, it's I know of people who have switched their paths, but it may or may not be very easy. Again, I don't have a lot of experience about that, so I can't say much. But from what I have heard, it may be important to choose your subsequent internships in accordance to what path you want to choose. Of course, at the end of the day, you should apply everywhere because you need to get your foot in the door in the first place. If you have a choice, those are the things that you should think about. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There are other things which people do try for, such as qualifying in other jurisdictions, generally after an LLM. This LLM does not help you qualify in any other jurisdiction. So if you want to qualify after an LLM, I would suggest you look at a US LLM where you can qualify in New York or wherever you want to. Though I think the California bar can be given without any LLM, but that's like a completely different thing. I have very little knowledge about that, and I don't plan to give it at least yet. I don't have any plans in the future. Yeah, so this is not something you should do to qualify in another jurisdiction. There are many people who are these days writing the exam to qualify in England and Wales. I don't know if that helps. From what I've spoken, what I know from my conversations with lawyers who work at firms, say you want to work at an English firm, Okay, but before delving down this path, I would add that English firms traditionally hire through the trainee solicitor system, and I think that is developing more and more across law schools in India. I think people are more and more aware of it. Um, so it's difficult to apply to an English firm at a junior level because they usually hire from their trainees. But in general, like I see this question about whether it is necessary to be qualified in England and Wales in advance in order to apply to an English firm. So I've heard it both ways. I've heard that you can apply and you will be hired for your qualifications and what you've done so far, and you can qualify in that jurisdiction at a later time as well once you get hired within say 18 months or so or whatever. And I don't know what the exact timelines are. On the other hand, I've also heard that you might stand a better chance of qualifying in England and Wales. Sorry, of getting a job in an English firm if you are qualified in England and Wales. Now, the reason I speak about all this is because all this people start to think about once they are entering the sphere of internships, and that's directly after the LLM. I think people start to talk about this towards the end of the LLM as well. But again, this is not why I should be doing the LLM. The focus of the LLM is international dispute settlement, and it is only your knowledge, skill, and application of this field that will help you get an internship or a job, along with having lots of luck and being in the right place at the right time. Do you have any questions, Abhishek? Should I be adding something?
I actually I think I have only one question at this point. Could you elaborate a little bit more about what exactly should a student or a graduate be looking at in terms of, let's say, skills or in terms of career trajectory when they're actually considering that, okay, the MIDS is something that I would want to do, and this is the right decision for me, let's say, after I finish my undergrad?
Okay, that's an interesting question, because it also makes me think about well, we as Indians, or at least from what I've seen, we traditionally look at the MIDS as a form of getting into the international arbitration side of disputes. From what I've seen, I'm sure there are people interested in public international law side as well, exclusively state to state disputes. And I do know such people as well, but the majority seems to be wanting to get into international arbitration. Um, but in order to make that decision, I think first one should, well, as a general rule, I would say it's not a good idea to, specialize at the very beginning of your career, unless like you're sure because of some XYZ reason that you would do very well in that path and you would enjoy it. So, say for example, if you're confused about what you want to do, I would not recommend you to take the steps towards specializing in international arbitration. But for whatever reasons you have come to an informed decision and a decision that has come after good experience that this is indeed the career for me, then by all means you should go for this and make this career path. Now, before applying for the LLM, if you want to make a career trajectory, I mean, honestly, I don't know how I can help you with that since I'm not really that experienced in that sense to be able to comment on how people should be deciding their career trajectories. But I would say generally that it might help to get experience in disputes and in arbitration if possible. Obviously, I know that the opportunities are very limited, so it's not always easy to get that experience, but maybe you should try to look at how arbitration works, write a bit about it, understand the field, and just as a nature the very nature of arbitration as a means of dispute settlement. Look at how the deadlines work. These are very important things which are often ignored while just looking at the theoretical side. Like, it's a very demanding field in the sense that there are successive deadlines. The endeavor is to try and finish the arbitration as soon as possible. So it can get very hectic. So if your general idea is to have a good work-life balance, um, you should probably try to experience arbitration first and see if you are managing to maintain a work-life balance in that. If you are more keen on just the practice side of it, and you think that you will manage the work-life balance later or something, that's your call. Yeah, but these are a few things to consider. So I would say to well, there's no formula to prepare for an LLM as such, or prepare for a career trajectory, because it's just it truly is a matter of luck, and how things work out is a matter of luck. But generally, it would be a good idea to have some experience in commercial disputes, I would say.
Yep, I think that answers my question. And yep. So also, I think that does bring me to the end of the pointers too. So before we conclude, so Param, just two things that I would want to actually ask. So one is obviously if there is any general tips that you might want to give or any myths that you might want to bust about this particular course. And the second is just a question, which is more of a parting remark of sorts, that in your experience, like apart from, let's say, learning more about arbitration and trying to understand how it works while you're still at law school, are there any specific internships that you think you might recommend that might give you a feel of what exactly is in store for you if you are taking up this LLM or if you're planning this as a long-term career?
Okay. Well, I don't know what law firm is doing what in detail, so I can't recommend an internship as such. But I would say that you should be looking at law firms that are doing arbitrations in itself and not arbitration related litigation. So if your interest is in arbitration itself, like arbitration related litigation is a very interesting field, and it's like amazing, especially in India, because like every day there's like some new jurisprudence coming through. Well, not literally every day, but the last year has been very dynamic. Um, Now that is a different thing, while an actual arbitration is a different thing. So look for law firms and lawyers that are doing actual arbitrations. Um, I would say have a look at the Global Arbitration Review, or um, Legal 500 or whatever, or just talk to people. I would say there are places that are doing arbitration but are not listed in these publications, but they are doing excellent arbitration. So maybe look at firms that have been, for instance, in investor state disputes. Look at the firms that have been listed on the record. Just write to them and see if they are working for India or working for any investor at the moment. Like DMD was doing some very good work in the Vodafone case. This is also what I've read about. I mean, it's not like somebody told me. Well, I don't know anyone there, but yeah, these things you should keep in mind. Sorry, I missed something, right? I missed a part of your question.
So yeah, so you've answered the second part of my question. The first part was just if you would want to bust any common myths which you have realized with respect to this degree and any general tips.
Common myths. I actually don't know of any common myths. Well, I think the common myth would be that you're here to study only international arbitration, but that's not the case. You will study a lot of public international law, law of the sea, procedural aspects mainly, but also substantive ones via the courses that you take. Um, I don't know of any other common myths as such. Yeah, I think the other common myth was, this is a way to get a career in international arbitration, guaranteed and all. But yeah, I already understand that's not how it is going to be. And as for tips, I would say, just take it easy. I mean, there's so much that is simply a matter of being at the right place at the right time. And maybe you will think that I'm seeing this way too many times, but I just want to emphasize that a lot. Try to build a network organically with the people you meet. Stay in touch with people you met at a conference, and you happen to have something interesting to say, and you had a conversation with them. Also, of course, I mean, staying in touch doesn't mean you badger them, but all these things come with learning. It's not like it's anybody does it on purpose, but yeah, I would say just chill out. Like whatever path works out for you works out. It's not like this path is the best path that's out there. There's many other paths. Each person makes their own, career in whatever way, and they are successful in their own way, I would say. Yeah, chill out.
Thanks a lot, Param. I think that does bring me to the end of the Q&A session, and with that also to this session. So thanks a lot for the session. It was very, very informative, and it did in fact open up a new opportunity altogether in terms of the MIDS as a possible degree that we could pursue after an LLB. So thanks a lot for that. And yes, I would just session by thanking you once again for taking out the time to come for this session.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been nice. And good luck with Team Plant. You guys are doing good work.
Thank you.
All right. Perfect.